Hello, welcome to Questions and Actor Laurent Pitre. I'm here with my phenomenal, incredible, unique guest. Who are you again? I'm stuck with this model, but tell us what's your name? Who are you?
My name is Jenn Wexler, and I am a filmmaker.
I love that. I love that. That's cool. That's interesting. So tell me, what is it? What do you feel makes you feel the most like a filmmaker?
Well, I have a whole answer to this, but before I answer it, I also want to say that I made a movie with Laurent, the Sacrifice Game, which he's
Yes,
wearing the shirt right
got the
now.
merch.
And so this is how we know each other, and
Yes,
that's how we
connection.
became friends. Um, So the term filmmaker, I feel like that's a really great catch-all for how I feel because I'm a writer, I'm a director, I'm a producer. I've worn a lot of different hats in making movies over the past decade or so. So filmmaker, and I also feel like I've made a lot of movies. It feels like you're making movies when you're making indie film with your hands. Like
Oh,
you don't have always like a big team of people doing things. So you're running around, gathering things, and very physically using your full body to do these things.
mm,
Um, so I feel like filmmaker
I
uh,
love that.
is the perfect term for that.
I love that. And making things in full body. I like that definition that you give there. And I know this a little bit about this of your story because I've asked you multiple times, and I'm so curious about the person that you are and the person that you became. So bring us all the way back. Let's take a time travel machine and let's bring us back to young Jenn Wexler. And talk about those initial sparks where you're becoming this maker, right? I remember hearing a little bit about that, but give our audience a little bit of those stories of like, how did it start for you? What were you starting to create that, or what were the influences that you were having around your younger years that really made this feel like this is what I want to become?
Yeah. Well, I specifically make films in the horror genre, and I became obsessed with horror when I was a child watching Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nickelodeon, which is a Canadian TV show. And but that was like my gateway drug. I was like 5 years old. I was obsessed with these like campfire ghost stories, watching these kids, tell each other these ghost stories. And then when I got a little older, I became obsessed with movies like The Craft and Scream, and I Know We Did Last Summer. And they were coming out at a time when I was starting to enter adolescence. And so it was kind of like I started to feel like horror movies were the only thing that understood me. Like my parents didn't understand me. I didn't feel like I fit in that well with like the kids I went to school with, but horror movies like understood my angst and strife. Um, and interestingly, this is something I don't actually share that often. But when I was a young teenager, that was this time like AOL chat rooms were a thing. And
Yes.
I really liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer at that time. And I got into all these like Buffy online role playing games where you're like playing characters. You're like typing in these chat rooms in the characters' voices. I was like 12 or 13
Wow.
years old. And that was kind of my first window into screenwriting. And I
Mm-hmm.
definitely wasn't playing it correctly. Like I wasn't doing the dice properly. Like I really have no idea how you do role playing games officially. But what I was doing is I was like practicing being in the different voices of these different characters. And now I look back and I'm like, oh, that was my first step into screenwriting, which then
Yeah.
I ended up when I was 18, I went to college and I majored in screenwriting.
And which college was that?
I went to the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and I majored
Nice.
in screenwriting, and then I minored in film production and advertising. And um, and then when I was there, I got an internship at a horror TV channel called FearNet, which that so horror fan getting to work this internship at this very cool horror TV channel. It was like Shudder before Shudder was a thing. It wasn't a streamer because streamers weren't around yet. It was like a linear television channel and website. And the website was kind of like in line with like Bloody Disgusting or Dread Central. It was that kind of thing. So I was interning in marketing for them, which then turned, when I graduated, turned into my first real job. I moved to LA and I started working in their marketing department. And it was just so cool to get to work in my favorite genre, getting to like
Mm,
learn all about horror as an industry, getting to see like filmmakers come into the office to meet with the executives, and
wow.
getting to be like really hands on at like Comic-Con, and like what the company would go to these different conventions and festivals and have a presence there. And I was there handing out Fear Net t-shirts. And so that was like in my early 20s, like right out of college, that was my first job and my first like working in the horror world. And honestly, a lot of those people that I met back then, I'm still friends with. In fact, I met my now husband
Yeah.
there. We both worked at FearNet. Um, and so it was
Shout
just
out
like
Sean Redlitz,
Sean Redlitz, who co-wrote the Sacrifice
the
game with
Zacharias
me.
game. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was how I started working in the horror space.
That's beautiful. That's so cool. Yeah. Let so were you again, sorry to use the time machine again, but I want to know, like, as a kid or a teenager, were you experimenting with making films or forcing your friends to do plays, or what was it like? What was like how, again, I love the AOL was your master class in screenwriting. So give us a little bit of the directing and producing. How did those start to emerge too?
Yeah, I was definitely like when I was a very young child, I was that kid who was super into make believe and super into, oh, we're at your house. Let's pretend that this like stair landing is a cliff or a fortress
Uh,
or whatever. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
was so in always just like creating in my head when I
Mm,
was a kid. And then when I got to middle school, and especially after like The Craft came out, I was like, let's like do light as a feather, stiff as a board at our slumber party, and let's go hang out in the graveyard after school, and like let's do a seance on our lunch break. Like I was like
yeah,
that child.
yeah.
And then in high school I started making like little videos, like little short horror films. I made one about like aliens, and I papered my brother's room in like crazy conspiracy theory like
Wow.
collages.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, my brother's name is Michael. I was like, Michael, I'm taking over your room. It's my set. And like I kicked him out and just like made his entire wall into my like conspiracy theory space. And then I made my dad this like farmer who like has
Nice.
seen aliens. So it was a lot of putting my friends and family like being forcing them to be my actors and to like
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
our home for our sets.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, you were already stepping into the role of director producer in that way, right?
Yeah.
You're like coming up with a vision, like it sounds like even like the early childhood games, like this is what it is, okay? So this staircase is actually a cliff. Okay, following me? Okay, and action, you know? And
Yeah.
then with the producing too, that goes hand in hand with those teenage, you know, experiments and those experiences and with those films that you're just okay, I got dad, I got the brother, I got who do I got, okay, and action. So it's so cool to hear like those initial moments that I think are probably fundamental and that you still probably pull from even as a director now, right?
It's really like my imagination was so vivid. And I think children's imaginations are vivid, but even into being like 12 and 13, when I was like truly obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like I had a stake, like just a stick I found in my closet.
Just in case.
Just in case I would like, I was just so sad. I'm like embarrassed, but I'm going to share it anyway because it's so cute
Let's do it.
looking
Yes.
back in a very objective way. But I changed schools when I was 13. My parents moved to
Mm,
another town, so I had like no friends in this new town. I had to meet all new people. And I was, like I said, obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I would just like, I remember just sitting during like recess and like just wishing that like my watcher, I don't know if you know Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Yes, yeah, 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 yeah.
well,
That this
my
was your Buffy
watcher
moment.
would like
Yeah.
come and like give me some kind of purpose and be like, no, you're special. This is your like,
I
um,
love that.
Laurent, I've never shared this with anybody on a podcast.
I'm
So that,
so proud of you. This is awesome because it makes me feel less alone. I was so similar in that way too. Literally, I'd be Googling like how to become a superhero, like when I saw Spider Man. And I was like, I had like the costumes in my closet ready to go and fight crime for real. Like you said, still had that vivid imagination of like wanting to play pretend in like high school when other people were like, what do you mean? Like, what what? You wanna play with, like, toys and, like, pretend that we're like, "Nah, man, like, that's not real, like, let's play a video game." I'm like, "No, let's, like, play pretend," like but not even that it was pretend, like, when it was pretend, it was so vivid, so I'm so proud of you sharing that because it's so universally true, I think, among artists, especially in our domain of filmmaking, acting, directing that. And I think it's something that's just channeled to such a higher degree and with almost yeah, you have to maintain that childlike sort of freedom, right?
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
I did start, in high school, I directed 2, there was like a student play directed
Cool.
by a student each year, and it was usually just seniors, but somehow I finagled my way into directing it when I was a junior, so I directed
Nice.
2 years in a row, but I have to say at that time, I had no clue how to direct, and I think I was, like, a terrible director, and I feel bad for my actors, but, anyway, we performed them, our parents all came and watched, and, yeah, so I had a little bit of directing experience there too. Got my
Well,
first
then
tattoo.
tell me about those first forays because I think the first time you do acting, similarly to I'm sure the first time you do directing, you make mistakes, you learn from them.
Yeah.
But what were like the big things that you learned from that time? Like, what were the things that you were like, oh, this is really great to do, and this is like, oops, that didn't work as well as I thought.
Well, I would say looking back, now I'm like, "Oh, I had 0 understanding of the material." I think the first year was Arsenic and Old Lace, and the second year was The Real Inspector Hound, by Tom Stoppard. I had, like, vague recollections of what those plays are even about. I had no understand when I was 16, 17 years old, 0 understanding of the material. I was just really excited to get to, like, work with actors, and I was the assistant director on some, like, high school musicals that like Guys and Dolls, but I was,
Nice.
assisting the teacher who was really directing. But, I had a vague sense like, "Oh, like, this is how we're gonna block this, and you should go here, and you should go here." But it certainly wasn't, like, working with the actor and figuring out motivation and figuring out why are they going from here to here, and what
Mm,
is the subtext of this moment in the play, and how is it all like, how are we building to the ultimate reveals and so on and so forth. So but it was very sweet. It was my first, like, you know, I was practicing,
yeah.
trying things out.
Yeah, I guess it sounds like you understood maybe later on that directing and I'd love to hear your perspective on it is a little more like a facilitator, a little less like telling you what to do, but rather like working with in collaboration. It's almost like a director is a really good collaborator as opposed to a dictator, right?
Of course, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. At that time, 0 introspection into all of that. But anyway, I mean, we like, to fast forward,
Yeah.
into the way that I like to work with actors and all department heads now is I do think that it is the director's job to maintain, to figure out what the overall tone is, figure out what the overall world is, and to make sure that everybody is in alignment together. So you're seeing as the director the whole thing tonally, beginning to end, and I mean, like, from the script stage, making sure on the page everything, even if you're not actually writing it, making sure everything is in line with the, ultimate vision of what that film will be, um, through, development and pre-production, working with the different department heads to make sure everybody is making the same movie and being very aware of all the layers and the subtext and all the various moments of your script working with the actors, making sure the actors are the director and the actor are aligned for the ultimate vision of that character. But like, it's only once I start working with the actor, I feel that I hand the character off to them. And then they do the deep dive into the character. They're like doing, knowing, learning. I mean, you can obviously speak way more to this than I can, but understanding all of the nuances of what drives this person, what ticks them, what maybe they ate for breakfast yesterday morning, why they do what they do. But if our initial conversations, like my job is that our initial conversations are successful, that the actor understands, or like the actor and I are in alignment with the world that this person is in, maybe the big things that motivate them, maybe the big things they should know with what happened in their childhood, their core wound or whatever. So I'm like setting the actor off into this world with an overall understanding of who they are and where they're going. But then the actor is the one that becomes the person
Mm.
and yeah, and then we move on through production and post. Anyway, I'll stop there and we dive into that or move on.
This is great. Yeah, yeah, we could move on, but let's move deeper into that. I'm curious then, you talk so well with actors and you talk about the craft so deeply. Did you ever venture into that world, or tell me about how you learned how to work with actors so well? Was it by watching as a producer or director? Yeah, like tell me about your process of learning how to work well with actors.
I acted well, like as a child, I was part of something called the All Children's Theater, where every since we're going deep into my background,
Yeah.
starting when I was 3 years old, I was
Wow.
like it was essentially just a summer camp. But from probably 3 to 12, I was part of this thing called the All Children's Theater, and every summer we'd uh, essentially put on a play or a musical or whatever, and we'd also have different roles where we would like if you're an actor, you're also painting the set and you're also like maybe you're the older kids were like choreographing and and so on and so forth. Anyway, that was a really beautiful introduction for me as a young kid that got my mind around like just introduced my mind to it. In high school, I took like acting classes as you do and did some like monologues performed at like I forget what it was, but some like state level competition I like had to perform a
Wow.
monologue at, which was fine. So anyway, early introduction to acting a little bit and then I like didn't do it. Then I graduated, didn't think about it at all. I don't like acting. I don't think I am an actor. In fact, I think that's maybe one of my I've decided that I want to be a director who's not an actor, but I can communicate with actors, but that's their
Mm.
job to do. Like I don't need to um it's just not my thing. But before I directed my first feature, so I produced um several features and then I decided I wanted to direct my first feature and which is called The Ranger. It's a killer park ranger movie. Um,
Fantastic movie. Yeah,
and
it went to South by Southwest, right?
yeah, it premiered at South by.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we uh, got into production on that, maybe 6 months out from when we shot, I took acting classes in New York. Not for my own necessary interest in acting, but more because I was like, I want to be around actors. I want to see what actors, as an adult, I want to see what actors are learning. I want to understand their process a little bit more. Um, so I did that, and that was like incredibly helpful to me. I had also, as a producer, been not working with the actors, but watching as the director was working with the actors for several years before that. Um, and then, yeah, I would say, well, I had made shorts and stuff too, so I'd worked with actors on that. But I did read a lot of books about working with actors and, the best, just various communication styles. Um, I don't know, but then at some point you have to like forget everything you learned and just like do it and just like talk to somebody as a fellow human and fellow artist and like dive into the material together.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the wax on, wax off. Like you gotta do all that training, and you're like, "What? Why am I doing it?" And then like someone throws a punch, and you can like stop, and you're like, "Oh, I know karate."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
It's the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
instinctive, like, you
Yeah.
know this, just, like, let it go,
Yeah.
don't overthink it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's
That's
really I
beautiful.
mean, it really is about when it comes down to it, when you're actually embarking on a project and you're actually starting to work with the actor, from my perspective, it really is about the, like, chemistry and the, like, okay, and the joint love about the material and what you're both seeing in the material, what you're both connecting with, and what the vision, what your, like, shared vision is for that character. And it becomes it's really lovely because it's like you, especially if it's like a script you've written, for instance, it's a story you've been with so long by yourself, and now it's like, here is the person who's now my, like, partner, who's now my, like, teammate in bringing this character to life, and by the way, they're gonna now take it and make it their own, which is so beautiful.
Mm. Mm.
Let's talk
Beautiful.
about let's talk about Doug and our
Let's
and our, um
let's do it. Yeah. Yeah.
our
Let's talk
process
about
from
the
sacrifice game.
sacrifice game. Yeah, I'm curious because it's funny. As I was like getting ready for this interview, I watched some of your shorts, and one of them being the one that you did for the Halloween night short film thing that you did with Larry Fessenden called "Bits and Pieces."
Mhm.
And I noticed a detail of the opening scene of that is so similar to the opening scene of the sacrifice game, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's so cool. For any Jen Wexler fans who haven't seen that and they've only seen the sacrifice game, I'm sure they already have, but it's so cool. It's like an opening shot of like trick or treaters going to the door. And in the sacrifice game, it's carolers coming to the door. And then it sets off this epic opening one take, no cuts, sort of opening 5 minutes, which sets the tone, like you're talking about, of the film. And I remember while doing it, I was like, this is going to be amazing if we get this right. There were so many technical elements that we had to get precisely right because there was going to be no hidden cuts. It was just had to be get done. And I loved it so much because again, yeah, like it also established this core group of the villains in such a strong way where you get to somehow see all of their personalities without them saying a word, right? Uh which yeah, tell me about that vision. Did you have that vision for that opening scene early on in the process of the sacrifice game? I know this is a story that you, like you said, spent years with. And then yeah, like tell me about yeah, maybe that first moment, and then we'll get into Doug, but I do wanna know about that moment there.
Yeah, so I wrote the first draft of the okay, let me before anybody if anybody hasn't seen the Sacrifice Game is about two girls who are stuck at their boarding school over Christmas, and then a gang of, like, Manson-esque cult killers come to the school for nefarious purposes, and the girls have to, like, survive the night.
Yeah,
We'll put that out there to start.
that's a good synopsis without giving anything away.
Yeah. And then in terms of that scene, that was so I wrote the first draft of the script in 2013, and that was one of the original scenes that I was like, I am not changing this. I love this scene so much. I will write around this scene if I have to, but that is one of the ones that is like part of the core DNA of this movie. You are so, like, right that it's very similar to the first shot in Bits and Pieces, but I truly didn't realize that until way after, maybe sometime we were in post on Sacrifice Game, where I was like, "Oh shit, I did that." They're shot like in the exact same way. Which is what but, like, that's just a very small example of what I think is so cool about the creative process, and I think, like, the creative life is a marathon, but when you commit yourself to it, it's really cool and magical and special that you start to, like, see these little things you're doing as you're developing your voice, not even realizing that you're doing those things, and I just find, those moments become so magical because 'cause you're like, "Oh, that is like me, that something in my self-conscious really likes that thing. And now
Mm,
there's evidence that like it wasn't just a fluke, it's like a thing that I'm doing. But in terms of that scene, I mean, what you said about each of the characters that you're able to, you get to know each of these characters right off the bat with no words being spoken. I mean, that's all you guys. That's
mhm,
all like the gang of villains, and you guys like being so in touch with each of your characters, knowing their
mm,
mannerisms, knowing their dynamics with each other, that
mhm.
you guys all dove into that
Yeah.
and found those little personality quirks, those little tells about who each of them are, that then the viewer, none of that is what I could have like even ever hoped for. Like the level of
Mm,
nuance of each of those characters. That's never anything like it was like hopefully, but that was not an intentional thing that was at the forefront of my mind. That was you guys and that was like your synergy and that was I think just part of this process of us all diving into this material and
uh-huh.
discovering who these characters are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the benefits to the filmmaking process for the Sacrifice Game was I believe we didn't film that the first day. I
Right.
don't think we did that the
We didn't.
first day, and I'm so glad we didn't because it allowed us to understand who they were on a profound sense because we had many days before that filming of that important first scene of the film. So like you said, I think we all dropped into who those characters were individually, but we also grew together as a little group
As a
together,
unit.
right? Like Mina Masood, Olivia Welch, and Derek Johns, we became this little crew of misfits that we all connected on like a friendship level too, I think, which was really just wonderful to do. But yeah, like we all just by liking each other's way of performing those characters, we each kind of knew what our vibe was, and they were such good contrasts. And again, I think that again speaks to you and the casting process of this, that you were able to find actors that brought together these really good four competing archetypes without them feeling like just a performance of that. They were all super grounded and in incredible choices for each one of us because I think none of us had that type of role before in their repertoire in that way. Like Mina Masood had just been Aladdin, this like charming, like da, da, like super protagonist, and now he had to go psychopath, like son of a preacher, gone totally mad and super vain. So he had to swing in a big new direction. Olivia Welch usually was playing these characters that are like running away and the victim of these horror movies. And now she's the one, like, basically the leader of this one, using manipulation and seduction in such a strong way. And Derek Johns, who's, I think, one of the funniest performers I've ever worked with. We went to theater school together, and he could play like big Russian dance teachers and just like nail the accent and be hilarious with improv, and just was like total comedic genius. Now told to be the super hardened war veteran who has like barely any lines until like one monologue that's just so powerful that he nailed in one take.
Yeah.
Um,
At like 2 in the morning.
at 2 in the morning when they were like not even sure if we're gonna get to your monologue, he's like, please man, I haven't said anything in this movie yet. I'm so
He
glad he
expresses
did
like so much
so
with
much.
barely any dialogue.
Exactly, which was so cool to see because he's such a good improviser, someone who nails dialogue, someone who's just so funny and fun to work with. So it was so cool to see him play this closed off physical presence. And then yeah, Doug was just I discovered him uh yeah, kind of in the audition because like I was offered this audition to do Doug, and I think I read the first descriptor, which was short, and I was like, I'm not getting this, so I might as well take some big swings. I just did like a fun tape with my friend Patrick Abelard, who's a great actor in Montreal. I also interviewed him on this podcast, but we just like jammed for like 2 3 takes, and I just like kind of was like, I felt like I had fun because it was just this like kind of alcoholic clown that's super depressed and is just like doing anything he can for love, which is like I was in similar situations in my own life of like chasing after people who didn't love me but were these, wonderful presences, leaders in their lives. So I do anything for people who would do absolutely nothing for me. So I was like, I connect to the heart of Doug, and I was like, let me give it, throw it out into the world. And then when I got an email for a booking, I was like, oh, cool. It's like that procedural that I auditioned for. And then I go, oh no, it's the what? Like what? Like I thought this guy's like a chihuahua, so they probably want some like Danny DeVito kind of guy, like really like. But I think what I understood was he feels that way. He feels
Yeah.
so small, so he has to do everything he can, like to prove, like, no, I'm kind of the leader, like, and like it was kind of cool to play that character too, because by seeing that and feeling that in my own body and getting to the chance to play in that world as Doug, I was like able to like build my confidence too as a performer and as an actor and as a person. I was like, it's good to learn like by the lesson of this movie, like don't go after people who don't love you back kind of thing for Doug. And I think there was like a beautiful arc for this character because he's got some good like little inside jokes and stuff that he like pops here and there, and he's kind of like a good like sort of comic relief for the film. Like I think any good horror film has that, and I was honored to get to be doing the kind of comic relief because it allows Sacrifice Game to be like a roller coaster of laughs and sadness and feelings. So Doug was the honor of a lifetime, as I've told you before. But yeah, tell me about what it was like to create Doug as a writer, and how did it grow or change in terms of your vision um when you started working with Laurent, and like what was that like?
I have to say that this is an example I feel where on the page he is very much an archetype. And it could have gone truly if things had happened differently, it could have affected the whole movie because I
Mhm.
feel the way that you perform him, not to make this all gushy or whatever, but just to say, like, you really it gives the audience the permission to like be with you guys. It makes you guys, because we're relating with him, because
Mhm.
he's like, what the fuck is going on? It allows the audience, yeah, it's that comic relief that like allows the audience to laugh, but and
Mm.
also see the absurdity of some of the
Mm.
moments and to be in on it, in on the joke with them, and to also
Mhm.
feel like the audience is like in the gang too. It's like
Yeah.
part of you guys and the audience is like, yeah, we're with this Doug guy. That would be
Yeah.
our perspective. But like
Mm.
if a different person didn't quite bring um that kind of nuance to the character, I think on the page he was just written much flatter.
Uh,
Um, I'll say the one thing I knew, and by the way, this is like a lesson for me too, because we cast it in 2022. I don't remember who wrote Small, but maybe that came from me. And you never know physically who is right.
yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
even about the physical, because the second we started talking over Zoom, I was like, "No, the small doesn't matter. The height of this guy does not matter." The fact that you're like, "I know this guy." I was like, "Yeah, you do. Let's get into that." Like
Yeah.
immediately it was about that. The physical, like just for, new directors out there, you might have ideas about physically about what each character should look like, and you may be completely fucking wrong. Um,
Mhm.
as I was when or as me or the team, I'll take the blame when we wrote
Uh-huh.
Small in that character description. But on the page, I was always Sean and I were thinking about Steve Buscemi, like who's a
Oh.
young Steve Buscemi type That's what it is.
Wow.
Young Steve Buscemi. Um,
Wow.
Grant was young Vincent D'Onofrio. So
So good.
so these were like
Wow.
types that, or like,
Yeah.
you know, uh, Jude was like Bill Paxton in Near Dark. Like,
Wow, yeah.
where these but I love movies and I love comps and I love thinking about how do you take this thing from this movie and bash it with this thing from this movie. And then that kind of becomes just on the page in my writing process. Sometimes it's well, what if, you put young Steve Buscemi and young Vincent D'Onofrio and young Bill Paxton and they're all like in a gang together. Like what is
Mm,
that movie? So anyway, that's just the way my brain works when I'm uh, coming up with the initial ideas. But like I said, that is why it's so imperative that then I then hand it to you and you make him a real person as you did.
mm,
Um,
mm.
yeah. And by the way, something I also want to say, not to
Yeah, go ahead.
compliment you too much, but I also
Yeah,
just
yeah,
want to
let's
say,
keep it light here.
keeping it light,
This
but
is
I
this,
just
this
want to say
episode is about you.
you're very on all the time, very on, and there's a lot of really fun moments that I didn't even realize were there because there's a lot of characters in this movie. At some points, there's like 8 people in a frame. But there's some moments that, made the cut too that were just like, "Oh, here's Laurent doing a little bit of improv over here, and that's great. Yes, we're putting that in too." So, just
Yeah.
being able to be, like, as a filmmaker, like, loose with it, like, you
Mm,
have your idea, but you're also open to, um, what the events of the shoot are bringing, what the people are bringing, da, da, da. And as the director, it's like, okay, is everything like in line with the world? And how do we like, yes, we want that. How do we encourage people to improv, for instance, as long as it's like in line with what we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely, Jen. I felt that on and openness from you too, and I think that's why we worked so well together and how fun it was. Like you allowed me to like decide to, I think, put the knife on the table and run it, which is a fun sort of moment where it builds tension. And I don't know, I must have seen that in a movie somewhere else because I was like, this would be really like again, I think it's like it helps that I also direct and write. So I'm like not only thinking as an actor, but I'm like, what could really serve her in a cut? Like that it's just not just like someone walking in and be like, hey, or like whistling or singing you were like cool with, or like when I was walking down the hallways for like
That's
five
so
different
funny.
pages,
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to acknowledge that I've been walking around for so forever that I had that moment where I just like threw in an improv of like, oh my God, more hallway. And I'm just
Yeah.
like
So
walking
good.
through and it allows the audience to remember, oh yeah, right. Doug's been walking around for hours and there's so many hallways, which is cool because it also makes the space feel even bigger, which helps, I think, in terms of scale of like thinking of this space as like this vast and like almost labyrinthian place because even later on when some character gets kind of lost in it, we can really believe it because we're like, yeah, this place is huge. So like I think acknowledging it, like you're saying, sometimes letting the audience in on the joke or on the thing is, I think, one of also the greatest strengths of horror films, right? It's like sometimes there's like a bit of a nudge or like or and it reminds me in a sense of my improv background where you'll create something on the spot and say it as the character and the audience loves that because they get reminded or they feel the reality of it like wow, yes, right, of course this needs to be acknowledged and I'm so glad they said it because it's real and it's almost the way we would react, right? Like most of us would react if we're walking, are you kidding me? More hallway? Like that's so relatable of like when you're looking for someone, like you start talking to yourself because you go crazy too. So I
Yeah.
love that Doug had that quality and that you allowed me to sort of like use the script as this deep inspirational place and had the ability to go, okay, yeah, yeah, oh yeah, that new idea that you brought there, that's great, that's cool, let's run with that. And then also you were great at being like, okay, that was a little too much, let's scale it down, let's stay in the tone. Like so you were good at sort of going, that's like a great moment that we can use, and then those are like maybe we might be deviating too much from a story here, And again, I want to be of service as much as I can to the director's vision. So I don't take that personally. I know like it can't just be like a joke, a joke, joke, joke. It has to also be like, oh no, wait, like he also needs to be kind of scary too, right? He's a part of this cult killer gang. So there's moments where Doug has these really dark moments where we go, oh shit, should I relate to him anymore? And then he gets this with a joke and we're like, ah, and then we're, oh no, wait a second, he's still really bad. I'm like, oh, which I think is good because any character, and I think that you do that really well with all the characters of the Sacrifice Game and all the characters that you've written in your past movies of allowing us to love and then doubt that love, but then still feel that, which I think is like truly what I love most about filmmaking is when characters have that three-dimensional quality of like you could love them, you could hate them, but like you can't deny that they're human, right? I like that.
Yeah, and I think that that's, like, what you were describing is one of the things I love so much about filmmaking is that it's, like, 2 in the morning and you're in this, like, basement hallway, and everyone is, like, slightly going crazy on caffeine or whatever, and you're just
Yes.
really in touch. Everybody is really in touch with the story and the nuance and the subtext, and is this hitting the level of what we need for this moment? Like, those are the moments on set that, like, I live for. I love being there
Mm,
with the actor, finding, like, that right thing. Um it's just so crazy. We get to live in this, like, fantasy headspace, you
mm.
know? And then, like,
Yeah,
pull things from the fantasy headspace, and then we're making them a reality. It's just so cool. It's like
yeah.
making movies is the coolest thing. I love it so much.
It is. It really is. It's like you said before with like how you started playing, right? We return to that space where we don't pretend that the staircase is a cliff. When you say it is a cliff, we see the cliff.
Yeah.
So I love, like you said, just like playing in that fantasy space and pulling it from that ether that kids too do, where there's not as much like, you know what would be a really interesting choice for the staircase right now? Like just tonally and like they don't think about that. Like it's almost like you said, it drops down from this ethereal place where we're like, yeah, it is a cliff, and all of a sudden the emotions come and everybody's feeling it, and there's a story that gets told, and it's in our intuition and our instincts from such a young age, and it's so cool to keep that alive because I think for me it's opened up a lot of different life experiences by staying in that curious and open place in my own life too. So I'm curious too, like what are like some big life lessons or things that you apply to your own life that you've learned by being a filmmaker?
I mean, it's honestly that's, like, such a big question because I feel like it's affected my whole life. It's affected how I think, what I do with my time. I'll say I I'm not the only obviously, there's so many people that feel this way now more and more all the time, but I have, a lot of angst towards social media and definitely this new world of AI. Like,
Mm,
0 interest in AI stuff, 0. I don't use ChatGPT, I don't do any of that, I have no interest in that. And then even just social media, which I find myself scrolling through more often than I like, I do think that the act of scrolling, the act of getting, like, sucked into, like, short post after short post is just really bad for the attention span and for the ability to focus, and I think as a writer and a filmmaker, as a director, like you have the your superpower is the ability to focus and it's the ability to dive deep into these other places that are invisible to the eye. Somebody else can be in the room with you and they are not seeing what you are envisioning.
mm,
Um, and I think, like, social media hurts that. Like, you
mm,
have to it's like a muscle. It's like working out, and you have to practice being able to visualize deeply and go to these deep
mm,
places, especially as a writer. Um, and I just think that these 2 things, like, do not mix. So something
mm.
for me is I'm always trying and again, it's but this is the thing that I'm constantly battling is just, like, wanting to be aware of what's happening in the world and all
Yeah.
that, but trying not to get sucked into that and having my daily like schedule, which is like, don't look at social media until this time, put aside like 3 hours of writing in the morning. I journal every morning because I want to like physically journal because I think it's important to have that 40 minutes of like focus and flow, just
Mm-hmm.
letting everything deep inside me come out on the page,
Mm,
um, without being influenced by the outside world first. So the first thing I do
mm-hmm.
when I wake up is I journal for like 40 minutes, um, which allows you to get into a place of flow, which allows you to practice flow, which then allows me when I move to my creative projects to like be in that headspace for 3 hours at a time or whatever. So, I mean, just to say, how does it affect me on a day to day, in a day to day
Mm-hmm.
way? It's like social media, AI, all that bane of existence, trying not to let it
Mm.
in and trying to keep my brain fresh for being in the creative imagination world.
That's beautiful, and I love that. I think that regular people could learn a lot too. I hate calling it regular people because actually they're protagonists and heroes of our movies. So actually, the cool people, the ones who don't have a fake career like us as artists. Sorry, fake career, but you know what
It
I'm
is what
saying.
yeah, it is.
But people who don't practice that kind of meditation thing that you're talking about, of like, it's beautiful that you spend the first 40 minutes just for yourself in your inside world. I think that that's enormously valuable. I do that in similar ways too. I do some journaling. I wake up now very early to go to the gym, so I'm like the first one there. I have my workout. I write while I'm working out. So I write these little short poems and stuff like that. Uh yeah, by the end of like that first, like you said, those first few hours, we've taken care of this, dare I say, optimism that is counter to the nihilism that we can kind of receive from social media or outside influences or the outside world. And I think, like you said, it's balancing out that sort of thing that I think most people in this world are feeling, right? So I think it's beautiful that you have a daily non negotiable. But now tell me, when did that process for yourself start? And what were the things that allowed it to become now intuitive, something you want to wake up and do and need to do? Because I know so many people ask, how do you start those habits that make the most difference as an actor or as a filmmaker? So tell me about those habits and how you learned them and how they also translate to days that you might be on set. And do you still hold on to those habits as you get busy or life gets in the way, you know?
When I was 25, I took a class. I've wanted. I mean, I went to school for screenwriting. I've battled the like I want to be a writer, but writing's so hard. Like I've done this for so long. And when I was 25 years old, I took a class at UCLA called Answering the Muse, and it was supposed to like unlock your ability to write. So like learn how to stop procrastinating or whatever. Like
Yeah.
unlock the stories within you. So anyway, I took this class and our teacher taught us about like free writing, which I guess is also like morning pages. I guess there's various names for it.
Yeah.
I
Shout
haven't
out,
done
shout out Julia Cameron and The Artist's Way. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't done the artist's way per se, but I think that my teacher was essentially teaching us that. When I was 20, during that class, when I was 25, I started waking up early before my job and just free writing. And the goal is like, you're not allowed to edit yourself. Whatever's on the page, this is like a safe place. Just go beginning to end. You can talk about anything you want to talk about. You can like make mistakes. You can cross things out, keep going. The goal is just like keep moving forward and don't look back and do this for like, 2 or 3 pages a day. So,
Mm.
I started doing that and it really made like such a I don't know, just like it's just on a day to day being able to unload just whatever I was feeling that morning when I woke up from the day before or whatever. Um just like created a little shift in me. I also really like to like sign it off with like a lot of positivity and gratitude and like, here's what we're going to do today. And this is like, I'm so excited for this. So it kind of sends me into the day with this like in this very positive, excited place. So it just became a habit. When I was 25, I make my coffee, I sit with my journal, I write, then I move into my day. Um, which then did start to translate. I mean, writing is still hard. It's hard. It's a hard thing that we do. But it did start to, unlock the ability of like writing a vomit draft beginning to end. Just like, I'm going to write this draft of the screenplay. I'm not looking back. My goal is to get to 100 pages by this date. I'm doing 10 pages a day or whatever parameters you set up for yourself. And it becomes kind of like a game and like, okay, I'm going to hit my 10-page goal today or my 5-page goal or whatever the goal is. I also did at this time in my 20s, I think I'm 26 now. No, not now. I mean, in the story I'm about to tell. When I was
I love it.
26, I did this thing called National Novel Writing Month, which is during the month of November. Like there was a whole thing you can sign up online so you can like talk to other people
Wow.
who are also doing it. But uh, the idea is that you write a novel in a month and you write like 2,000 words a day. And at the end of the month, you're at like 60,000 words and you have a novel. So
Whoa.
when I was 26, I wrote a novel. Um,
Wow.
I didn't have a job at this point. So I had nothing else I had to do. So it was
Mm-hmm.
nice every day of the month of November of that year
Mm.
to work on my novel, and I wrote it. I never went back to this novel, so there's just like a first draft of a novel somewhere in my office.
No way. That's so
But
cool.
I've never really shown it to anybody. But
Your
the
your
point was,
super fans are so excited for its launch. There'll be chapters next year.
yeah. But the point is that it helped me like, it's part of the journey of me discovering my voice and discovering my interests and what I wanted to write. And it showed me I can get through something, like I can finish something. Like this is my goal and I'm going to finish it. Which also, by the way, I learned making short films is so great because it teaches you can finish this. It seems hard and scary, but you can finish this. And then when you want to graduate from shorts to features, you're like, well, look at all these shorts that I finished. It's the same process. I'm just going to move this into something longer. So, you're building your confidence and showing yourself that you can do these things. That's
I
why
love
it's a
that.
marathon. That's why I think, like, the creative life is a marathon. Like, Martin Scorsese, I think, said recently, like, at his age, he's only, like, discovering what movies can be, and
Hmm.
that's amazing that he feels that
Yeah.
way. Like, it's a I think that if you I think that the creative life is so beautiful, and if you commit to it and you understand this is not just, like, a one-time thing, this is a this is a life process, this is a marathon. And you don't look at it like that's a drag, but like that's a beautiful, amazing thing. I don't know. It's just like it's so joyful.
Wow. Wow. I couldn't have picked better words to come to the closing of our podcast episode because I believe in those words so strongly. And it's really, really cool to have this moment to chat with you and catch up and hear about all your journey. Before we go, um, where can people follow your journey and what can we look forward to or what are you looking forward to most going into this new year, and what are some things you're hoping to put out there?
Well, I'm on Instagram at Bubblegum and Blood. I'm not really on Blue Sky, but I have a name there. And I hate social media, so I only post once in a while.
Yes, true.
But I just released, or rather, this company Glass Eye Pix that I worked for many years, they just released an episode of my Tales from Beyond the Pale, which is a spooky audio drama series. And my episode is called Orpheus. And the series is very like Vincent Price, Orson Welles, old school audio dramas. My episode is called Orpheus, and I won't give anything away, but it's very
Hmm.
of the moment, sci-fi, thriller, horror, and it's the kind of thing you can just put it on your podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can just listen to and hear a spooky tale and close your eyes and imagine it. So that just came out like last week. And then I'm in posts on a project, so more news on that soon.
Love that. Thank you so much, Jen. And you, listener or viewer, if you're a listener, you know what to do after this. Go and listen to Orpheus on whatever podcast platform you're on right now. But if you're a viewer too, leave a question in the comments. Myself and Jen will do our best to answer all the questions and respond to any of your comments. Also, if you're listening to this on a platform which is a podcast platform, please leave a review. Please subscribe. And finally, I just want to thank you again, Jenn Wexler. This was an awesome, awesome interview. And scene. There we go. That's the end of the episode.
Yay!